stop the Lord Almighty? Lord Almighty. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? I got He's pouring in our battle. Every knee will bow before every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before the Lion and every knee will bow before the Lion
As well, I've got a few things I want to call your attention to this morning. I want to really highlight three of the So if you're interested in that, they already have the drumsticks ready to go. Maybe we're going to create some new drummers for your worship team, Dustin. There you go. So tomorrow night here at the list. So if you're in, jump back to the for many years, really since 2010. Kept sending teams, and we're sending 2 more teams this year. One will be this summer, the other will likely be in the fall. The fall is a ladies trip, and so ladies only on that one. They're going to work with Haitian ladies, and the summer one is for everybody. If you really recommend. Today we have an informational meeting in the located, and you can join us right after this this service for about 10 minutes for an meeting and check it out, because next Sunday we're actually having figure that out. So anyway, come join us for an informational meeting. The other thing I want to call your attention to is the middle announcement. Is going to be joining us here in a few minutes and concluding that conference for all marriages. Whether you've been married a long time and things are going great, or you've been married a long time and they're not going so great, or if you're a newlywed or engaged to be married, I would encourage you to come continue to build your marriage on the right things and join us for the marriage conference. We've had a few videos we've shown that have just really showed us different stages in life that we go through, stages in our married life. So if you want to check out the screen, maybe this hits where some of you are at.
Okay. Call us if you need us. All right. Bye. That was it. Our last one off to college. He made it.
Yep. Looks like it's just us now.
So how was your day?
Normal. Yours?
Same.
Well, I'm ready for bed. Are you coming?
No. I'm going to read for a little bit longer.
So wherever you're at in your marriage or soon to be marriage, then I would encourage you to come to the marriage conference and build your marriage. We are going into a new series next week. The series is on prayer, and it's going to be an excellent series helping us to think about prayer. One of the things that we'll be talking about next week is about big specific prayers. And one of the big specific prayers that we as a staff wanted to pray for this marriage conference is that 125 couples would come. That's huge, and that can only be done if God makes it happen. Here's what I want to say. There's about 50 up in Bern. We still have a little ways to go to get to some big specific number that we've been praying for. You could be an answer to prayer. If you haven't signed up yet, guys. So, in fact, even if you're watching online, get online and you can sign up today, and you can pay by credit. All right, so that's all coming. Today, God read just to kind of transition us into some more singing time as the band's going to be playing in a moment. This comes from John chapter 1, verse 14. In fact, I'm going to invite you to go ahead and stand. So read this for us. He's talking about Jesus. And so he says, the Word, Jesus, became flesh, became a person. So God became a person and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. So that we might have a way that we could figure out how to get back to God through Jesus. Today, I hope maybe we can just set our eyes and our attention on Jesus. And we're going to be singing a few songs here in the next few minutes. Tim's going to come and share a message. Before any of you
together for my
powerful name is Jesus. And to know and away from pain. So we're going to sing Jesus Loves You and then move into this new song. If you're new to this Jesus thing, new to thing today, with whatever we came in with, we can sing to Jesus.
Surrounding me, let it break. Let your name you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Silence fear, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, your name is a light that the shadow cannot be overcome. Your name is a light forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, oh. Jesus, 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 you're tonight. You'll not be overcome. You're forever lifted high. Your name overcome. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus.
And that it would silence that fear that's so loud and that thank you that you sent your son to this earth to conquer that darkness and silence that fear. God, thank you for your love that just comes after us. God, thanks for being with us on a daily basis. God, I just ask you continue to speak to us today. It's in your awesome name we pray. Amen. Guys, thanks for singing. You can have a seat.
Hey, good morning, Bridge. How we doing? How you guys doing? Everybody feeling good? Kind of getting through the winter doldrums. Here we are on a beautiful Sunday, and we've been going through this series of marriage, and we're in week number 4. So we kind of wrap it up today. You even have makes a good marriage even stronger. And everything is good, and we're just trying to love all the days of your life. But admittedly, sometimes there's tension in marriage, right? Sometimes there's distance in marriage, like we saw in the video there a little bit earlier. And if that's where you're at, this is a conversation that kind of brings you back, right? So it's more of a continual conversation to kind of intimacy. Nobody wants a marriage that's going to fall apart. So this is the kind of conversation that you embed this and these vows and these teachings, and it helps prepare you. It may be the very thing that or the vision of where marriage is supposed to be under the gone through those here just a little bit. God will be my first priority, and my spouse will be my second. My spouse will be my second, not my job, not my career, not my hobbies, ladies, not the kids, not the activities. We're going to help each other fall back in love with Jesus. That's our priority. And then we talked about it in week number 2, how I promise I'll always pursue my number 2. I promise to pursue my number 2, to kind of remember the details of love and intimacy and prioritize that. And then we came back to last week. I promise our marriage will be about we and not about who? Me, not about me. Hey, it's about laying down life for one another. And we talked about how it looks like and what it looks like to serve and to love each other. Well, today, and we're in week 4, so this promise says, I promise to confide in you and not hide from you. Can we say this together? I promise to confide in you and not hide from you. So what's that look like? It's kind of about valuing and protecting. Told the team, Dave and some of the guys at the bridge, I can come into a marriage conversation them have. Because some of you might know, you are in this room and you're in a space, maybe you're not single, maybe you're not married, but you're alone. And I know what that's like, to be in love at one moment and to have the person you love pass away, step into heaven, and then life is really different, isn't it? I just want to let you know that I understand that. And in fact, I want to just kind of share a marriage ended, and there wasn't stigma or that place in your heart where you feel like I'm a widow, I'm a divorcee. It's an empty place. And I just want to share a story with you. Just recently, right, we all celebrated Valentine's Day. Did you have a good time on Valentine's Day? Guys, did you go out and you pursue your number 2? Well, when we were getting ready, Rebecca and I were getting ready to celebrate, we also, just last weekend, had our second wedding anniversary weekend. So we were going to Nashville. So we set up a week Thursday. We loaded the truck up, and we were ready to just take off and drive to Nashville. We had a hotel booked. We drove through Louisville. We could have stopped at any one of those. We even drove through Elizabethtown, Kentucky, and we just kind of kept driving. And for some reason, we decided we were going to pull off in this little town in Kentucky, just this little exit. Now, ladies, I'm a classy guy. All right, so when we get off the exit, the first place to eat is McDonald's. And I'm not taking my wife. So I never say, that's good Mexican food. I said, we're not going to Taco Bell on Valentine's Day. So I just wheeled it right into Arby's. God had something set up for us, right? So as we get there, we talked to this sweet older lady behind the counter. She took our order, and she took her name for the order. And she goes, oh, that's a nice biblical name. And as we're standing there waiting for our food to come, Rebecca says, I'm going to go ask her the question. So she pray in a minute for our food. Is there anything that we could pray for? It opened the door, so we got to meet our new friend, Elaine. In a few minutes, Elaine came out from the counter. She sat beside us, and she started to share her story. See, Elaine was alone. She had things together, as it sounded, and towards the end of his life, he had Alzheimer's, and then he also developed to love, right? So she had been alone for a while, and she just said, I just want you to pray that February 18th. So 2:18, or Genesis 2:18, has always been a very, very meaningful, purposeful verse for us. So we just shared that verse with our new friend. We said, Elaine, you probably for you. And Jed, hey, alone. And then we want you to know this is you. It is not do that, because if you're in that place today and you're in a space where God sees your heart. And our God is and he wants to add to it. Our God takes some time, ladies. She may be time for it, but it just takes a little time for him to work out the details to get us there. So if you're in a place where you're alone, or maybe if you're recently engaged, or if you're single, or even if you're walking in love and marriage, today's message is about helping us to prepare of intimacy that God has in store for us when it comes to marriage. So with that said, would you meet with me in Genesis chapter 2? I just shared Genesis 2:18, how God created for Adam this beautiful new bride, Eve, right? And we get into 2:22 or 24 and 25, it says this. This is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united. Say that word, united. United. And is united to his wife. They become one flesh. Say one flesh. Right, one flesh. Adam and his wife Eve were both naked, and they felt no shame. So this is the reason why God creates intimacy of relationship. Leave your mother of shame. In the Hebrew is everybody say boosh. Boosh, yes, say with a Hebrew accent. Boosh, right? Boosh. To be ashamed, to feel completely worthless. See, when we feel shame, we start to feel in that place where we're worthless and distant. But Adam and Eve, they had the intimacy of oneness. They were there in a really, really beautiful place because they were in a place where they were united until that's something very special intended when it came from marriage. When we read about their story of oneness with God, at one point in the scripture, it says, with them in the garden. I mean, how cool is that, right? How cool would it be with God in the morning and just kind of sharing time with him and maybe I could do life with her. She's incredible. Thank you for the gift. And as they walked, I'm sure that Eve picked up the conversation first, right, guys? And she probably started to say, so Adam, tell me about yourself. I mean, what have you been doing? What are your likes? What keeps you busy? Tell me more about yourself. Before I came along, what were you doing? Oh, it's so black. Look, it flies so fast. I like that. Ooh, what's this bird? That's a blue red bird. A red bird.
And it's a cardinal from here on out.
Okay, good. Well, what's that? That's a brown bear. Yep, definitely a pattern. A brown bear. Okay, all right. What is it? Oh, that little bear, I call that thing a koala bear. What do you think? I don't know. We'll check.
Love it.
That's so good. By the way, the truth is, I think they had fun together. I think they enjoyed oneness. And that's why with God and love with one another is all part of the equation. That's what he intended it to look like. So you went towards the center of the garden. And they stay away from. And I noticed it, and they stopped dead in their tracks. You go, you know what? We're not supposed to go near it. I agree. Let's deal, right? So they taste it, see what it's like. We're in the scriptures to say that they came together and they started to try to not only just stay away, know how to stay. So they didn't have it. Hard for us to admit this, but we're it looks so good. Nowhere who experienced oneness with God said, you know what, we're gonna bring God into this challenge that we're facing because they were consumed with darkness individually. And see, what would it be like if we and get honest with one another when some new version of temptation stepped into your life? What would it be like if we just said, you know what, there's this new person at work and it's pretty attractive. Or, I was on Amazon today, it's on sale, and man, I just want to click yes to it and kind of get it. I know that something my old ex. Or maybe there's an uninvited fantasy that starts to run through your thought life. What if we started to make it a normal habit to stop and get honest with one another? Invite Jesus into the conversation because he wants to confide in you and not hide from you. See, oneness means that we are stronger with God. Two are better than one, but a cord of three, man, it can't be easily broken. And God's design for marriage and that intimacy of oneness was so we could resist the darkness and the stuff that wants us. But you know the story here, right? I mean, Adam and Eve did their own little thing. They kind of, maybe they were thought life. And the enemy just loves that. And you know how this happens. He divides them, starts to fall apart. So if their eyes were open, and both of them realized that they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and they made, but the Lord God called to the man, where are you? He answered, I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. Look, I just got to stop here just for a moment. We'll come back to this in just a second. I mean, this is free. This is just bonus material here. Why would it lure them so much? You know, if you ever read your children's Bible or maybe even saw some of the old pictures, I don't know, Picasso, Michelangelo, one of those old dudes, right? And they always painted that Eve has picked this apple and is handing this apple to Adam. But nowhere in the scriptures does it mention that the fruit's an apple. And in fact, an apple tree doesn't even get a mention all the way through the scriptures. So I'm pretty sure it probably wasn't an apple tree, right? So why is that such a big deal? I don't know, but stay with me on this. Take a look at this. Then their eyes of both of them were open, and they realized that they were naked. So if you just realized that you were naked and you were kind of publicly out there, what would you do? Would you cover up? Hopefully some of you, most of you, all of you would say, I'd cover up, Tim, if I was publicly naked, right? So I don't think that Adam is sitting there thinking, now where's that fig tree? I know I had it somewhere. So he starts to cover up, and he looks up, and they're covered with what kind of leaves? Fig leaves. The fig leaves grow on what kind of tree? What kind of fruit grows on a fig tree? You guys are tracking with me today. Why is that a big deal? Well, I'll tell you what, in just a moment. Can we do that? We're just going to come back to that divided the oneness. It had some separation between way. Because when God questions him, he goes, it was that woman, God. She's the one that made me sin. Oh, that woman? Is that who I am to you now? That woman? Can you imagine how long that took to heal up, man? I mean, so that woman, and you know what? Say and use words that we never kind of cover it up some way or another, or we deflect it with words, or we start to separate ourselves. We start to get better, and we start to put some distance between the oneness and intimacy that God designed us for. Ephesians chapter 5 says this, but among you, there must not be even a hint of sexual immorality or any kind of impurity. Impurity. What is impurity? It's like bad fruit, right? Impurity is always divisive towards oneness. It may look good on the outside, right? It may seem appetizing, it may seem safe, but that exchange for pleasure leaves us in a position of shame, and it's never worth it, right? That promise of pleasure is short, and then, boosh, we're left feeling completely worthless. As Rebecca's husband, it's my role and responsibility to defend her purity, to protect her purity. Ladies, what is it? What tree is it that lures you into temptation? What kind of fruit is the secret battles that you're struggling with? What is it in your life that's kind of luring you away from the oneness that God has created for you to enjoy in your marriage? Ladies, it's just as important for you to come back to Jesus and stay pure. Your thought life, man, your eyes, your visualness. It's our roles to kind of meet together and understand the red flags that will challenge what purity and intimacy looks like and design that God has for you. Do not go near the door of her house. Her could be any version of a woman, man, that will lure you in to visually locking eyes with some version of a woman that doesn't belong to you. It could be thought life. It could be lust. It could be full-blown out sin. Keep from the path. It doesn't say learn how to resist the temptation. It says stay the heck away. Right? Don't go near that house. That house, ladies, could be, it's going to challenge what it looks like, some kind of fantasy life. You're in this with her or with him and the Jesus together, guys. It's not just your computer. It's not just your iPhone or your phone or your Instagram or your money. That tree to introduce darkness to Adam and Eve and cause that kind of separation, is it starting? Is it spending? Is it some kind of fantasy life? The social media sets you off. The thing is, it can look pleasing to the eye. Purity against the enemy's messiness is serious business. Maybe that you need her. Are we tracking? So as we work through that, you were once in darkness. There was a time when this version of life may have owned you. But now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of the light. For the fruit of the light consists of goodness, righteousness, and truth. Let's say that together. Goodness, righteousness, and truth. Find out what pleases the Lord and have nothing to do with those fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. See, there's a time in your life when you didn't know the difference of truth and righteous and what's good. Chase after be my first priority. And my wife will be my number 2, but I'm bringing her with me, guys, when it comes to this. I'm not leaving her behind. We're walking through this place of goodness, righteousness, and purity as one. See, you never find healing in the dark. Shame always goes best in the dark. Secrecy and intimacy are always at a battle between each other. Proverbs 28:13 says it this way. Whoever conceals their sin does not prosper, but the one who confesses and renounces them finds mercy and healing. Do you remember that fig tree thing I mentioned just a few minutes ago? Remember that? We kind of left it here for a minute. Well, Matthew and Mark kind of write about this time period where Jesus was going to be crucified. Just a few days before Jesus is crucified, he's in a garden. This can be a strange story, but the writers talk about a time period where it's the spring of the year, right? It's not the season for fruit of any trees, but it's certainly not the season for figs to be in bloom, to be ready, to be ripe. But so the writers talk about how Jesus was hungry, and he goes to this tree. We're losing battery. Okay, we're losing frequency. The enemy will stop at nothing, right? And he looks at this tree and he says, no one will ever eat of the fruit of this tree again. And he walks away. And the writers both comment how the next day or a few moments later, that tree has withered and died. Why? Why was Jesus so mad at this tree? It wasn't the season for figs. Why was he so mad at a tree? Why is this story? And I got a little theory. Entered into the world and caused division to the oneness that he came to reclaim. And I believe he was saying that nobody's marriage, so he could restore love, so that he could restore the darkness that was there. He brought light back into marriage. He brought light back into but he says to restore it and to make it whole again. The promise to confide in you and not hide in you invites us back to a place of confession. Invites us back to a place where when we confess, we seek and we offer forgiveness, right? We both seek and we offer forgiveness and grace. I want to invite you to start to sit down with one another. And rather than just figure out how you're going to individually resist in life with Jesus in oneness, sometimes it's kind of have the conversation. Just kind of share, but be sensitive to each other, right? Don't go trying to dump 20 years of stuff all at once. And not even 20 weeks or 20 days. It's appropriate, but trust Jesus within your hearts together. Now, some of those folks that are so gifted to kind of help you through that conversation. So as we close out this series today, and as we close out the message here today, I thought it'd be meaningful. If you happen to be sitting together, hopefully you are. And if your wife's serving somewhere, have a really personal go through it. So I want to invite you to say, I'm going to invite my wife, Rebecca, to come right here. And here's how we're going to do it. Just like you would in a ceremony, we're going to, I'm going to say the vow. Just say the vow. And ladies, we'll let you go first. And then guys, you get a chance to repeat it to your wife. So ladies will go first. And then guys, you will repeat it. And if you're alone right now, I have another sentence that I want you to repeat as your vow, just between you and that future that God is preparing for you. All right? So here it starts right here.
God will be my first priority, and my spouse will be my second.
That's good. Now, guys, it's your turn. I promise that God will be my first priority, and you will be my second. If you're alone here today, I wanted to invite you to say this vow. God is my priority, and I will use him to filter all other relationships. Just repeat that. God is my priority, and I will use him to filter all other relationships. The second promise that we made, husbands and wives, ladies, you get to go first. I promise I will always pursue my number 2.
I promise I will always pursue my number 2.
And men, your turn. I promise I will always pursue my number 2. For those, again, if you're not married here today, here's your promise. I promise to pursue Jesus and prepare for my number 2. I promise to pursue Jesus and prepare for my number 2. Our third promise is this. I promise our marriage will be about we and not about me. Ladies, you're first.
I promise Our marriage will be about we and not about me.
All right, men, your turn. I promise that our marriage will be about we and not about me. For those of you that are alone, here's your promise. I promise I will learn to love and to serve others above self. I promise I will learn to love and serve others above self. And our fourth and final promise is this today. I promise to confide in you and not hide from you. Ladies, you're first.
I promise to confide in you and not hide from you.
And men, our turn. I promise to confide in you and not hide from you. And once again, if you're in that place where you're not married here today, here's your promise. I promise to protect my purity and to be honest with God. I promise to protect my purity and to be honest with God. I invite you to sit down here just for a minute. I'm just going to seal this with prayer as the worship team kind of comes up here. So please have a seat and relax. Dear Jesus, as we've gone through these because we understand that we're in covenant with you and one that in this room today. And I promise for those that have, or I vow that you would honor that danger of the enemy and how he wants to be sneaky, how he wants to be. And for those in the room that are alone or single or Lord, I pray that you are working out the details for them. Holy Spirit, would you speak to them? Would you encourage them? Would you continually allow them to know that they are not alone in this? You see them, you notice them, and the details of what's next are being worked out. And I pray that they leave here knowing that this gift of love is for everyone. The knowledge and the tree of life is.
We're going to continue to sing. And purity starts in the heart. And so we're going to give our hearts to Jesus today and just sing about that. As we do, the people with baskets are going to come and take your offering, communication cards, and then will you stand and sing with us?
walking through the conversation of vows, but we've also been building towards this. You've never been around John Lisey. I really trust John with the messaging and with the sharing of what it would look like to grow stronger when it comes to marriage. Served outwardly around the globe, really. So I just want you to trust what John and what the Holy Spirit would bring for that message. So maybe you've got a friend, a neighbor, a son or daughter or whatever. Just continually know that those truths. But the vows we made today will continually walk with you. All right? Have an incredible week this week. All right? Hopefully you